business, but it would be completely impossible, or it would be impossible to have as many blogs as we have got if there weren't the two of us.
Hello and welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show. I'm your host, Mark Philpott, and on today's show, I have another great couple of guests for you. People love to travel whenever they can, and my guests today do that every time the school holidays are on, because they are teachers. My guests today are Janina and Jim Stromfield. Janina and Jim, welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show.
Thank you, Mark. It's good to be here.
And whereabouts in the world are we speaking to you today from?
Well, we're from Horsham, which is in Sussex, in the UK.
Sussex in the UK, and if I was a betting man, I'd say you'd have some rain today.
Absolutely. Plenty of rain to go around at this point of the year.
So, travelling around for an umbrella first thing this morning.
Oh dear, before you headed off to school. Now, you're both school teachers and you love travelling, so we're going to get into a lot of that today. But before we do, I want to ask you, have you ever been on a podcast show before?
No, this is my first time.
First time?
First time for me too.
First time for you as well. Well, fantastic. Do you do podcasts at school these days? Do you get the kids onto podcasts and stuff?
They do go on to podcasts. I haven't personally used any as yet. I've used a podcast as an example of something when I've been teaching, but we haven't actually made any.
What I normally do for my guests is I give you the opportunity to dedicate this show to someone special in your life. Now, because I've got you two on as a couple, I'd like you to actually dedicate the show to somebody else other than each other. So have you got someone special in your lives that you'd like to dedicate this particular show to so they can listen back to it and always have it as a memory?
I think probably we should dedicate it to our next door neighbour, really, Dawn, who she's fantastic and really allows us to do so much travelling as well, because she's always around to look after the house when we're away and to keep an eye on all our animals.
Wow, that's a fantastic thing to do. Dawn the neighbour. So Dawn, this is for you. And it's great to hear that there's still some neighbourly love going on in the world. We don't hear that much these days.
Yeah, she is brilliant, and we have many animals here, so we really couldn't go away quite so much if she wasn't prepared to come over and feed them every night for us.
Wonderful. Well, good on Dawn. And as we say, this episode is dedicated to her. Now, travelling, tell us all about when all this started. When did you first fall in love with the whole process of travel?
I mean, I think for the two of us, it's a very different story, really. I mean, mine was relatively recently. When I was 30, myself and a couple of friends, we went on a road trip around the southwest of the States, and just sort of really enjoyed that a lot. And then it was relatively soon after that I got together with Janina, and before too long we were travelling quite extensively. So since then it's just really, really grown and grown, and we can't really do enough travelling as far as I'm concerned.
What inspired the road trip, Jim?
It was just our 30th birthdays, all three of us in the space of about 2 months, and we decided to do this. And a friend of mine who, both the friends I went with them are really into cars, so a road trip really appealed to them, and I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity.
Was that the first time you'd done any really extensive travel?
Yeah, I think so. I've spent quite a lot of time in New Zealand as a child, because my mum's family all emigrated over there in the 90s. So I'd gone to New Zealand maybe 6 or 7 times, sort of throughout my childhood, but that was a very different kind of travel, really.
So that was more family-related travel, though?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, spent, I think, 7 months in New Zealand and spent 6.5 months in the same town.
Although you did go to the best country in the world. Which town did you go to?
Rotorua was the main place I was.
Rotorua, okay, good. And what are those memories you have of New Zealand? It's quite a different scene in a lot of ways coming from the UK, but was it something that you immediately connected with? Was it a good feeling for you being out there and seeing a different culture?
Yeah, no, it was a good feeling. I just was fascinated, I remember, by the volcanic activity. because in many ways it was very similar to the UK, but yeah, sort of nature was really different, both with the volcanic activity in the mountains, which we don't have in Sussex.
It's a long way to get to New Zealand from the UK. How did you handle the long trips?
It was fine, really. I think I was 6 the first time I went, but we broke it up with some sort of overnights in Singapore a few times, so that helped break it up a bit. And that was quite interesting. I remember as a small child wandering around parts of Singapore, which was good. But just a bit older, just watching the films and trying to get some sleep, really.
Yeah, right. And what about you, Janina? When was your first travel experiences in your life as a young person?
Well, mine was 19. I'd taken a gap year.
Mm-hmm.
So I started way back in 1994. Don't do the maths. And I went on a trip I went to see a friend in South Africa, and then went on an overland trip from Harare in Zimbabwe all the way up to Nairobi over the course of 2.5 months, which sounds really cheesy, but completely changed my outlook on life.
Yeah.
From, going out to the pub and having fun with your friends to actually there was more to life than just Cambridge, which is where I grew up. So it had an amazing effect on me. Just seeing Africa, and East Africa is such a fabulous place to start. That all I wanted to do when I got home was to work and then travel again.
I like the way that you both went to different extremities. It's not like you went just over to France or something. You went to basically the other side of the planet. So tell us about when you talked about some of those things, experiences that changed your life or your outlook on life. What were some of those things? How did it open up your view of the world?
Well, I suppose I've always considered that I hadn't really thought much outside my own social life. I was 18, as you are, and your life revolves around what is happening and the gossip, and suddenly when you're in Africa and you're seeing, the poverty that they live in, the fact that they're happy without all the mod cons that, if we take for granted, and the fact that, we couldn't live without them. And they clearly could. It just makes you really think about your life, how privileged you are, but also at the same time how amazing this world is. Africa's plains. We went to a lot of game reserves, and I've got a degree in zoology, so just the animals that we saw. And the different way people live their life just really made me stop and think about my own, and really appreciating it, I think.
Well, with a degree in zoology, it must have been like a mecca for you.
Yeah, it was just before I did my degree.
Oh, okay.
And I went to do a degree in general biology, but specialised after the first year in zoology. So clearly it made such an impact on me that I kept it going.
I bet you have more live case studies than anybody else in your class.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about your immediate connection to other cultures? Was it something you found exciting to experience in terms of getting to know how other people live and survive, and in this case with a lot less than what you were used to?
Yes, I found it fascinating. The whole haggling. The whole being dropped in the middle of Harare, and then meeting up with the crew from the overland truck. But going around, we weren't really sure where to go. We didn't know what to do about a hotel. I was with a friend of mine who'd also taken a year out, and neither of us had done anything like this before. And it was quite frightening, because we weren't sure where was safe, and there were lots of people wanting us to change money and buy the wooden carvings, and we just wanted a place to stay that we were going to be safe. I remember we went into a department store that the name I recognised. I'd been in Durban with my friend in South Africa beforehand, and we asked them about where we should stay, because at the time, we had no real idea, and it taught us both, the overland, sort of how to travel. It being in, and how to travel in an area where, you could get culture shock quite easily from what was going on, because it was all so very different.
So looking back on that now and all the travel you've done subsequently since that trip, have you changed and modified a lot about the way that you travel?
Well, mine has changed immensely. I started with the overland, and then I backpacked. And I did a lot of backpacking in South America after that, after university. I then decided that the backpacker culture wasn't for me, because I earned enough money to stay in a hotel. But then you didn't meet anyone, so you have the downside of that. So I started going on some group holidays. So I did several of the kind of the group travels I went to Cuba, I went to Romania with those. And then I travelled with school a lot. I did probably 6 or 7 years where we took 17, 18-year-old kids out to, it was mainly Africa, for 4 weeks, and camped and did a project with them, and did a hike with them. And so that was a different phase again, because it was absolutely phenomenal, the things we did, but I wouldn't really call it a holiday, because you're in charge 24/7. And then I met Jim, and that's by far my favourite travelling. I have to say that, he's next to me. But we, we now travel. We now are, we have promotions. I'm a head of science, he's a head of maths. We have enough money to be able to travel the way that we would like to. We don't travel, 5-star, but we are a lot more comfortable than when I was backpacking. And because there's just the two of us, we go where we want to go, which is fabulous.
How did you two meet each other?
Well, we worked together. So we were in the same school for 8 years, although for the first 4 years we, I think, spoke to each other more than about once. And then we ended up being in the, used to be a head of a year group, and I was became a tutor in that year group, so we got to know each other a bit better then. And that was when, 5 years ago?
Yeah, nearly 5 years.
5 years ago.
So it was an inside job from the start, Jim.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Well, look, being the head of maths, you won't have any issues with me asking you any questions about maths today, because it was my weakest subject at school, so we'll stay way from that.
Okay, right.
But Janina, I want to go back to something you just shared, which I think is really interesting. When you take children, in particular students, on trips, and is one of the fascinating things to see how they grow and evolve because of that experience as well?
Oh, absolutely. My first trip, we took 11 15-year-olds to Ghana for 2 weeks. And the amount that they grew, I worked with a company called World Challenge, and they have a system where one is supposed to be leader for the day, and the children make the decisions. Obviously, they don't make any dangerous decisions. That's what we're there for. But they decide the itinerary. They decide what time they're going to get up. They lead each other. The idea is by the end of it, they can organise themselves. So it is a lot of sitting on your hands, waiting for them to make a decision. But yes, the growth in them is absolutely phenomenal. From that particular trip to one that I did in Madagascar, which was truly amazing. We had 5 weeks there. And when we started, they didn't want us to talk to anyone. They didn't want to organise anything. And on the last night, we came back into the hotel, and we were flying out the next day, and we just sat back. We didn't have to do anything. They got out of the car. They organised the keys for the rooms. They organised the wake up. They organised the breakfast. They organised the trip to the airport without us having to do anything. So yes, seeing the students grow while we're away was a real highlight of doing those trips, actually.
I would be going straight off on another holiday and laying back and relaxing and getting them to do everything for you.
You've done your last one.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Tell me, why was the country of Ghana selected as the destination for that trip?
That was interesting. The company that we had gone with had brought out some new 2-week trips. So before they were all 4-week trips, so we took the older students and we decided that with the 2-week trips, we'd take some younger ones. And actually, I think there were only 3 we could choose from. And so we went for the cheapest, and being Africa and knowing it would be a culture shock for them, which it was. It was actually quite a longer culture shock than we thought, because that was the year that the volcano erupted in Iceland.
Right.
And so we were trapped there for an extra 10 days on top of the 2 weeks that we'd already done. So, yeah, that was a decision made in conjunction with the guy who was running them at the time.
Right. But isn't that fantastic, about the volcano, because that kind of sums up everything about travel. You have to expect the unexpected when you travel, and when things like that, you either deal with it in a positive way or you let it get to you and get all upset about it, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the children did find it quite hard, because although obviously it was the end of our trip, so we'd stopped camping by then, and believe you me, camping in Ghana is hot.
Right.
And it gets hotter overnight. I don't know how it does it, but it does. But we were then in sort of a 4-star hotel because it was the end of the trip, and the company had put up money for it. But yeah, it did rattle them quite a lot, actually, staying on. So we had to work quite hard to keep them interested in things and keep their mind off the fact that they weren't going home. So it was. I think it was more stressful at the end, but we certainly got some good things out of it. We went to a football match in Accra. So that's something that not many people
can say they've done. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Now, this week I'm doing a series of episodes talking to people that have started or are already doing travel blogs, and you're one of those guests this week who have started a travel blog site. And the interest that I have from my listeners is there's a lot of people out there who are like you, who have a full-time job and they do a lot of travel and they want to share those experiences with other people. And then there's another group who are actually on the precipice of perhaps leaving the current job they're in to go off and travel full-time and do travel blogs. So my series of guests this week include all the people with those kinds of different backgrounds. So we're going to be talking today about your blog site, which is called Stromfield Adventures. Curious to know when you started it, why you started it, and some of the background behind it.
So we started it, I think it was a year and a half ago, maybe, something like that. And really it started because we were both finding lots of people were asking us about various trips we had done, either because they were trying to do something similar themselves or they were just interested. So we decided actually maybe we need to be starting to write down some of the things that we've done. So as we started to find us losing a little bit of the detail of what we've done on some of our trips. So it started from there, really. And we kind of decided to sort of split it up. So I tend to write a bit more about what we actually did on our trips. And Janina focuses a bit more on just what takes her interest, really. So she's got a bit of free rein as to what she does.
I do the features.
The
features. Okay.
And she's also the predominant photographer as well. Probably about 90% of the photos are hers, if not more.
Right.
And I try and sort of deal with the technical side of it as well, in terms of how it actually looks as a site and things like that.
So tell us about the whole setup of a blog site, because a lot of people out there, one of the challenges of doing this is not actually the travel component, it's actually all the technical stuff going on in the background and getting the message across and distributed. So were you both savvy in being able to set up a blog site and get all that running from the beginning?
No, really not. It's not something that either of us would say was our strength, is dealing with technology at all. So what we did is I did a little bit of research and we went with Blogger, predominantly because it was free. And we thought, well, we'll start off with this platform we'll see how things go, and then maybe we'll develop it from there. So that seemed to be relatively easy to work, but there's a few bits that I needed to do, like we wanted to put on some buttons so it would link to our Instagram and Twitter and so on, and that took a remarkably long time to do it for someone who's never done any kind of website design before. It was okay. I mean, there's plenty of stuff online to help us do that, and I guess the stage we're at now really is we've had it up and running for a bit, and we've debated a few times as to whether or not we need to sort of change the format a little bit of what we've got, but neither of us really know anything better to switch to. So until we get to a point where we really think what we're doing is not fit for purpose, I think we're just going to continue using Blogger, really.
For somebody that's listening to this episode and they want to start something up, what would be your couple of pieces of advice to get them going on a blog site?
Well, I think my advice would be just, we can procrastinate so much about what it should look like from the outset, but just get going and do a few bits and you'll work out what's working, what's not working, and possibly grow it from there. And we've already redesigned things a little bit based on what we found in the first month or so, and I'm sure we would keep doing that.
Were you both people that had done a lot of writing about your travels previously? Had you journaled about your previous trips that you've spoken to us about already today?
I used to write diaries for mine, and that was one of the things that they encouraged on the trips with the students. One of the things that World Challenge encouraged, and we encouraged them to do because it was a lovely thing for them to look back on. So we tended to do it as well. So I've kind of kept a record, per se, of where I've been, and I've always enjoyed writing. Although I have to say at the moment, as Jim said, I am the predominant photographer, so I spend most of my time in Lightroom. But yes, I do like to write about it. We found it really interesting as to which ones that people have liked, and we still are sometimes very surprised at which ones are viewed more than others. It's really quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get into that in a second, but I'm also interested to know there seems to be three types of travellers out there. There's the ones that will do the travel writing, there's the ones that will pick up the video camera and go crazy on YouTube, and then there's the ones that do nothing and don't want to be seen online at all. What made you gravitate towards writing versus picking up a video camera and going around and doing things?
Well, I think one thing that certainly would go for me really is when we're actually out on a trip, I want to sort of fully immerse myself in what I'm doing. I mean, I hardly take any photos because I just like to see what's going on and to experience what's going on. And I think if I was doing sort of lots of video, for me, it would get in the way of enjoying what I'm there to see.
Yeah, I think that goes for me too. Actually, we've got the odd clip on the phone of video. And we try to use that. I started to try to use that on Twitter a little bit, but yeah, predominantly we like to write about it. It's nice to relive it, and I think you can relive your travels much more if you're writing about it rather than just uploading something that you've already filmed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And do you think it makes you think more about the actual trip as well when you're sitting down and putting it in a documentation?
Absolutely, and I mean we proofread each other's articles once we've done them, and it's amazing that you sit there and you write it, and then the other person looks at it and goes, "Oh, you haven't even mentioned this," and then we can think back and go, "You know what? I've totally forgotten about that, but now that you've mentioned it, yeah, okay, we'll put that information in as well." Because on each trip, I mean, most of it we both remember most of it, but there's certain things that I'll pick up which Janina will have completely missed, and there's things that she'll pick up which I've completely missed.
That's a good point. I was going to ask you today about the benefits of working as a team, and you've just highlighted one there. What other benefits have you come across as doing this together as a couple?
Well, I think when it comes to travelling, we definitely have our own sort of niches with what we organise. So I know Janina always works out, for instance, how we're getting to the airport and sorting that out. I tend to be in charge of all the the sort of logistics of travelling around whilst we're in a country. So like, how do we get from this town to that town, and have we got the right paperwork, and what time do we need to go? Janina will quite often find the sort of more obscure things to do in various places, and definitely when it comes to the animals and the wildlife, she's all over it.
Yep.
Yeah, I tend to get obsessed with one thing that we have to definitely see, and therefore that's my responsibility to work out, okay, if we want to do that, how are we going to get there? What's going to be the best plan once we're there? Which is often quite nerve-wracking because I'm never entirely convinced if Jim's going to like it or not. Yeah. Fortunately, he loved Ushguli up in the mountains in Humaneity in Georgia, which was the last time I did that properly.
Right.
And said, no, we have to go here. So that was a big success for both of us, actually. But yeah, we kind of split the jobs there, and we do split the jobs on the blog as well. As I said, I tend to do the photos, but also I write some of the feature articles. Jim and I do the comments mainly, and then Jim does the more of our trip reports, we call them, really, I suppose. And I take care of Twitter, and he takes care of Instagram. So it is really useful that we can share, because there is absolutely, sometimes it feels like it's an impossible task with the two of us, but it would be completely impossible. Or it would be impossible to have as many blogs as we have got if there weren't the two of us.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I think people underestimate the amount of work that goes into whether it be creating a blog post or even doing a podcast show. There's an extraordinary amount of work, and I think having those peripheral platforms of social media today also creates another level of work. Do you think you underestimated, and I don't say that in a judgmental way, I'm just saying, do you think you underestimated the amount of work that actually had to go in this when you first started?
I think I probably underestimated Twitter, but I underestimated also how much I would enjoy doing it.
Right.
And it does take a lot. And at the moment, it is quite difficult because the autumn term is always the really, really busy term. And I've come from the summer term and having the summer holidays where I can, have access to Twitter and reply to people. So my engagement has gone down a little bit since then. But it does take, in order to do it properly, and to grow a following. And I'm not just there to grow a following, actually, because I've met some amazing people, and you get some fantastic ideas of people from Twitter. But at the same time, in order to keep up with that, you do have to put in a lot of hours.
You both got full-time jobs, as we know, as teachers, so your obvious breaks are going to be during the school holidays. How long do you take to plan out your next adventure leading up to a school holiday break?
It depends, really. We tend to do sort of 6 weekend breaks over the course of the year, and they have fairly minimal planning, really. That's just, shall we go here? Yes. Let's book hotels for Friday, and we kind of figure out the rest when we get there, really. It's during the sort of the proper school holiday breaks, they vary a bit as well. We get our half-term breaks where we tend to go sort of 3 or 4 days somewhere. They're usually quite easy to plan. It's our Easter trip and our summer trip, which take considerably more planning, really, and we do those a good few months in advance. And actually, we're at the point now where we just ordered all our trips up until August next year, all booked in and not quite finally put together, but at least almost there.
How do you choose your next destinations?
Well, we have a range of methods, really. When we go away sort of over the Christmas holiday, we like to go somewhere that's really warm to have a break from the cold winter at home. So we did that for the first time last Christmas, and we went to the Caribbean, and then this time we're going to Cape Verde. But we've talked about some places that may be a bit cheaper to get to for us, which is going to be a bit warmer, like maybe the Canary Islands or Cyprus or something. So that's sort of our motivation there. We did go through a phase for 18 months or so of for our half-term breaks is we'd shortlist, say, 6 destinations, and we'd give each one a number, and we'd roll a dice, and whatever came up, that's where we'd go. I think we've done 3 or 4 trips that way.
Yeah.
And the first time we did it, both of us, we'd independently written down in order of how much we wanted to go to these places. And the one that we rolled was on number 6 out of 6 for both of us. So we then thought, well, if it's our last on our list, shall we go? Should we just roll it again? And we figured, no, let's just go. It's going to have something to offer. And we really enjoyed the trip. So we were pretty pleased we did that.
Now, because you know that you're going to be blogging about your destination that you're going to, do you do a lot of research before you go?
I don't like to do research before I go, actually. I like to do just enough to have an idea about what there is to see, but I don't really want to know that much about it. So, for instance, in the summer, we went to Argentina, and what was going to be the highlight was going to be Iguazu Falls. But I really didn't want to find out anything about Iguazu Falls because I didn't want to have such a sort of expectation that when I went there, I felt like, I already knew about it. I wanted it to keep some of the excitement. So
that's a good way of doing it, because as you say, you can be more spontaneous that way as well.
We are teachers, and as you said, we like to plan. So we have, we have our warm holiday in the summer, and we have a Christmas market trip that we do in the last section of the autumn term, and then we go away at specific times because we have specific holidays. But while we're away, we have a general plan of what we'd like to do, but we do have quite a bit of flexibility. It's quite rare for us to actually book anything in other than the hotel. We're going to Vienna next week. It's half term next week. So we're off to Vienna.
Yeah.
And we have booked in the Spanish riding school because obviously that might have sold out. But we're intending on spending a day in Bratislava, and we haven't booked trains. We just, we will go there and we will see what the weather's like, and we will decide what we want to do.
Yeah.
Based on that as well. But I think the research, it does depend on where we're going. So, for example, I've become a little bit obsessed with wanting to see an Arctic fox when we go to Iceland, which you can see apparently up in Hornstredir, which is a boat ride away from the nearest town, etc., etc. So we've had to do quite a lot. Well, I have had to do quite a lot of research in order to convince Jim that yes, there is a very good chance we'll see one if we go at this time or in these conditions. But then, as going back to the blog, what we were saying, when we write articles, we do a lot more research then, which actually, again, takes you back to that trip and makes you appreciate what you saw even more, because you're reflecting on it, having sort of had that experience in the first place, I think.
How long after you've done a trip do you post on your blog about the trip?
At the moment, with the trip reports I'm doing, I did the first one, I think, after we went to Berlin, which I think was February 2018. I think that was the first one I wrote. And the plan was we were going to sort of backdate and start from our first trip, which was, 5 years, almost 5 years ago. And then I decided really that I was going to just work from the first trip onwards, because I was thinking it's much easier to write about it when it was relatively recent. So at the moment, the ones that I'm writing and posting are from summer 2018. I'm hoping sort of in the next 12 months I will catch up to where I am now, and then maybe I'll be posting them in a matter of maybe a week or 2 weeks after we get back. The only problem is that the amount of travelling we've done has grown so much in the last year, really, that I'm not quite sure I'm going to catch up, really.
So I tend to do the feature ones, so I tend to write about where we've just gone to, and I pick something that I'd like to. But we do tend to, we put up daily posts when we're away, both on our Facebook page and on Twitter. So that's kind of a way of people being able to see how we're organising our trip, for them to get ideas as to how they can do it before we kind of put posts on the blog, because we want to use both of those social medias as a way of sort of giving people inspiration as well, rather than just this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's also been really helpful, because there's been a couple of times when we've been on a trip and someone said, "Oh, you're here. Have you thought about this?" And we thought, "Oh no, we didn't know about that. Maybe we'll check it out." And, we even met up with somebody in
Tbilisi,
because we happened to notice they were posting whilst we were there on Instagram, and we were like, "Oh well, we're there as well. Are you still there?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we are." So we met up with them, and that was quite good fun.
Yeah, it was excellent.
So social media has a benefit; it can actually bring people together in that way.
Absolutely. We've met some other people from Twitter. We went to the Tower of London with them, and we're going to see one of our friends, I suppose, from Twitter in January to do some stand-up comedy. So you can meet really interesting people, and you're all tied with that same link of travelling. So we thought it would be really awkward. We'd go to London and we'd meet these people we'd never met before. We have no idea if we have anything in common apart from the travelling. And actually, it didn't really matter. We had a really, really good time just because we're all tied in that way of really enjoying travelling. And so seeing the sights in London was just something that we would do if we were away anyway. And it really worked, really did.
It's great that you share that, because it's another illustration of how travel can bring people together through the most strangest of ways, right? And it's opening new doors. Who knows where those connections and relationships and friendships can actually go and evolve to? And I think that's one of the many beautiful things about travel, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we tend to be, because we're so busy at work, when we're having a Stromfield adventure. It tends to be just the two of us. We're not particularly extrovert. We if you're looking at our blogs wondering what happens in the nightlife, then you're probably not going to find much information there. But it is really good to be able to make those connections, as I said, about travelling. And I would really want to meet some more. There are certainly some more people on the Twitter. The travel side part of the Twitter, which we sort of connect with at a later point in time, definitely.
Time for me to throw you both a bit of a curveball right now.
Ooh.
What's your favourite snack food when you're travelling?
Ooh. Well, I think we'd have to just say crisps, wouldn't we? It's our go-to thing. We've got a long bus ride, right? Let's buy some crisps and we'll just munch on those. So, although there have been various trips where we've taken a bit of a showing to one of the particular local things or not.
Yeah, I think the local things are something that we really enjoy. We really enjoy food. We have to be very careful when we're travelling because we eat a lot, and then we have to work it off when we get back. So I was a bit obsessed with alfajores when we were in the snack when we were in Argentina, and
Church Keller.
Church Keller when we were in Georgia. Yeah. So we do tend to try the local snacks, and they tend to be what we eat while we're out there. We travel with hand luggage only, so we don't take anything with us. When we go, so it is mainly the local snacks that we're eating.
Well, that's great, because I usually get the common things like chocolate or peanuts or something like that. So to hear a couple that are actually out there trying the local snack food, that's a great response. So thank you for that. Now, while we're talking about luggage, what's a couple of things that you always have in your bags when you travel?
Pack of cards. We always have. Almost always have, although I managed to forget it last trip. But,
pack of cards, fantastic. Yeah, what's the game? What's the game?
It's my niece and nephew, and it's called the Stromboli game by them.
Okay.
It's quite hard because everybody knows what it is, but only if you use that name.
Yeah.
But that is our game of choice, and yes, I think we got up to a couple of hundred games when we were in Sri Lanka a couple of years ago.
More than that. The score was a couple of hundred each.
Yeah.
I would take the maths teacher take on that one. I'm sure it was a couple hundred each.
I can't count.
Yeah. No, I was highly irritated. I think we were away for 23 days or something, and I think I was in the lead of the tournament for 21 days, and I lost it right at the end.
That's a lot of card games. Did you have a lot of rain while you were there?
Not really, but it was the sort of thing like when we were in Colombo, which we didn't really take to particularly well, but we found a really nice tea shop. So we'd sat in there and had some tea and just played a few games of cards, or when we're at the station waiting for a train, or that kind of thing, really. It's just something that was quite handy to sort of pull out and have a few hands of cards, really. I remember we got on an Easter Sunday somewhere, we were in Sicily at a train station, and I don't know what happened. The train was just really, really late or something, so we were playing for about 3 hours just waiting for this train to turn up. So it's quite handy for that. And I suppose the other thing we always take with us is our Kindles, really. So we both like to read a lot. And again, that's usually if we're on a long distance bus journey or a train or something, we look at the scenery for a time, but it's also quite nice just to have a bit of a read.
Have you got into the podcast world yet? Are you listening to podcasts?
We tend not to take electronic device. I mean, we'll take our phone with us. That's about it, really. Embarrassingly, I don't even have any music on my phone. We don't tend to take headphones. It's not.
No, not when we're away. No, we tend to be a bit low tech when we're actually away, to be honest.
Immerse yourself in the moments and the experiences.
It's quite nice to have the sort of the chatter that goes around you and not miss it, and all the noises of even if you're on a bus or something, people talking to each other in a different language. It's just interesting, really, the interactions.
Yeah, and trying to work out where different people are from is quite interesting as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I obviously won't go anywhere without my camera.
Exactly.
And 2 lenses and a tripod now.
So the camera equipment inventory is growing.
Yes, it has grown quite significantly over the last couple of years, but fortunately it still fits in our hand luggage, so we're all right.
Very good. Now, getting back to the whole process of making a successful blog, how did you find the whole world of social media when you first started? Was it something that you easily picked up on, or were there some tips that you can pass on to the audience today about things that you might have learnt along the way that you wouldn't do again?
I was really lucky. I went onto Twitter. I was trying to find my feet, I suppose, and work out where I was going and what I was posting to and things. And I came across the Travel Tribe as a hashtag, and some people on there, Bonster and Chopster, and Travel SOS, who really sort of guided me along the way. And another guy, Gerard, G&G Journeys, who then told me all about lists and how I should use those. And they were just generally, I suppose with Twitter, I would say just jump right in. And also see if you can get yourself in one of the chats. There are loads of travel chats, and you can meet loads and loads of people. I found that Facebook is much more difficult to grow. In fact, we haven't really grown it that much. I'd say 70% of the people on our Facebook are people we know, whereas we probably have about 3 on Twitter, and we have just over 9,000 followers. So a significant number more on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd say about Instagram.
Well, I think what we found with Instagram to start with is we just had so many photos. We would just sort of post random photos up of any of the trips we'd been on previously. But since then, we deleted the lot and started from scratch again. And we thought actually it makes more sense to sort of build it up as a story. So that's got like a chronological record of all our trips. And also we thought, it was important for us that it was something good for us, and we like our Instagram feed because we can look back and look at things that remind us of our holidays. And we know we put up some stuff there which doesn't necessarily have mass appeal, but for us it's really important that our project is something that we get a lot of enjoyment out of, and we're doing it for our own benefit as well as to sort of spread sort of the travelling bug as well.
That's a good point, because I think we often use these social media platforms, and the first thing that comes to mind is the audience we're posting for, rather than keeping those memories for ourselves as well. So I'm glad that you shared that, because when you look back on all these, you're going to be the one that looks at all of them over a period of time, and as you say, it brings back those memories of those trips.
Yeah, we find the same thing with Facebook, and when we're away on Twitter, just our daily postings. Yeah, they are really good. They attract different people. Sometimes, as we've said, we've met people, we've got new ideas from people. But also, because we use a hashtag when we are using Twitter, and our Facebook page is just our Facebook page, we can again scroll down and we can see exactly what we did. And we have built this and the blog up for being a memory. It would be nice at some point in time to monetize the blog a little bit, but we're miles away from that, and actually we don't care. We still want to keep it going, because to us it's such a good thing to do, to be able to share what we're doing and have other people reading it. It's actually really quite a special feeling, and we don't have a massive readership, but it's so nice when people comment on the fact that now they want to go to a certain place because they've read about it on your blog. That's really nice.
Yeah, that's terrific. So there's no long-term plan to quit the day job and go off and be travel bloggers for the rest of your lives?
I don't think so, really. I mean, it's something we've talked about, or sort of trying to combine the two. We've kind of thought maybe we should go and teach abroad somewhere, use it as a base for a while to explore somewhere else, sort of, do it that way. But I think we both really enjoy our jobs as well for the vast majority of the time. It's always days where we feel like we should jack it all in, but no, we like it. And also, we've reached a point in our careers really where we get paid a reasonable amount of money, which funds our travelling. And if we decided to sort of jack it all in and just do the travelling and the blogging, we'd have a massive shortfall in the way we wouldn't be able to travel the way we do. Really. And to make it work, we'd have to grow this considerably first while still working full time. And neither of us quite have the time or really the inclination to do that at the moment.
I think we also really like home. We chose a house together. We bought a house together. It's in a beautiful location, and I love going away, and I wouldn't go away any less. But I do like coming home as well, and it's quite nice to get excited about going away, but also feel nice that you've come back, home where all your memories from all of the trips are, and have a place that, I think I would find that quite difficult if I didn't have a place to call home, I suppose.
It's often underestimated, isn't it, the feeling you get when you come home from a trip, in terms of it's the beginning of the reflection point as well, I guess, and in terms of remembering all those experiences you had, and it's a place that you can go back to over time when you're at home to think about past journeys and that. So I think that's something that's fairly important about the whole travel process, is that process of actually getting home again.
Yeah, I think we do reflect a lot on holidays and where we've been, and as teachers, I suppose, in looking at whether we would want another career or not, we'd be giving up 13 weeks a year holiday, and with 13 weeks you can do quite a lot of travelling. Would we want to do any more? Yes, we would. Yeah, okay, so we would. And we need to win the lottery, basically.
But I also think that the fact that we come home is quite nice, because it makes sort of a distinct end to one trip and the start of another, which is quite nice. And we tend to dart around quite a lot. So, we can be in Europe one week, and then a couple of weeks later we're in South America, and then we're back in Europe, and then we're off to Africa and so on. So, we do hop around a lot, whereas I think if we were doing this sort of full time, we'd probably need to spend a lot longer in certain places, and we don't tend to go for the spending a lot of time in one area sort of mode of travelling. We like to sort of dip in, get some of the highlights, see some of the lesser known bits, and then we're off to see the next thing. Really, there's so much to see. We every time we go on a trip, we we've probably add 2 more to the list of places we want to go. So it's our list is not getting any smaller.
No, we were researching the other day for somewhere to take. We're taking away our niece and nephew.
Yeah.
And they normally have sort of your normal beach holiday, and we asked them if they wanted to come on a Stromfield adventure with us. And in researching where we can take them, we're going to Bratov so that they can see Dracula's castle, which obviously isn't Dracula's castle, but that's got them excited.
Yeah.
Dracula's castle and bears is how we sold it
Right.
to them, but we gave them a lot of choices as well. And in doing that, Jim comes downstairs. Oh, now I want to go to all of these places. Now I've looked at them.
Yeah.
So it's well, as you will know, having been to so many countries, it's just a never-ending. There are so many things to do and see, which is great because you're never going to run out. You know, we can do this forever and not get bored, which is just a lovely feeling.
I can attest to that because unfortunately we don't have enough years in our lifetime to be able to go every place we really want to go to.
No. I don't want to think about that.
No, let's not go down that path. Now tell me, do you come back from your trips and share those experiences with your students at school?
Well, yeah, as it happens, I did an assembly this morning to one year group. I'm doing one every day this week, and it's about, actually the focus I've done is how does maths come into our travelling, really. So I've been doing that this week. So I've done, shared that with 1,500 kids by Friday.
I'm sure the kids would be a lot more averse to listening to that rather than being told to make sure they tuck in their uniform or something.
They'll get that too, don't worry.
We're about to wrap up on the show, but I'd like to give you both an opportunity to talk to my audience about a couple of tips about starting a travel blog, the things that you've learnt along the way, and a bit of advice for them to get going with it. Or what would you say?
I would say don't be scared. Just get on with it and do it. There is a lot of advice out there, and you can read advice until the cows come home. And there are a lot of people who say, well, you have to research everything really carefully because you want to start off the way you want to keep going. But I do think that just leaping in and giving it a go is you can tell whether you like it or not. So just pick something and start with that and see where it goes.
Terrific.
I think I would say as well, obviously read some blogs and stuff there. I guess probably most people would be interested because I've already read some blogs, but don't try and sort of mimic some of the other blogs. Just do what you want to do, and you'll get the people that that should be following you to follow you, I guess, and to have a look at your stuff. And if it's your blog, you do it the way you want to do it.
That's a great one. Don't be a copycat. Well, I'm going to put the link to your blog in the description of this podcast so that all the listeners listening today can find you and read all the great blog posts that you've already got on your site. I'd love to have you both back and sometime in the future to talk about one of your next travel experiences if you'd like to come back on the show again. And I would definitely like to reiterate that we've done the show for your next door neighbour Dawn today, and I hope Dawn's enjoyed listening to it all.
Well, thank you very much. We've really enjoyed chatting to you. We do love talking about travelling, so it's been fantastic to do it on a podcast, our first ever podcast.
I was just going to say, you can go and tell all the kids at school that you've now done your first podcast.
Yeah, I will do, particularly with the classes tomorrow. Bottom set year 11.
I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today and wish you all the best, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again sometime in the future. Janina and Jim, thanks a lot for joining me.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah, cheers, Mark. Thank you.
That was Janina and Jim appearing on the Global Travel Channel podcast show today. Two teachers from Sussex in the UK talking about how they turn their school holidays into a great opportunity to go and travel the world, and also to write a travel blog about their experiences. So I hope you got a lot of good tips about starting a travel blog, or if you're already a travel blogger, maybe some of those things that Janina and Jim shared today will help you on your journey. If you're looking for more wonderful episodes from the Global Travel Channel podcast show, just simply go over to our website at www.globaltravelchannel.com. There you will find all of our previous episodes, and if you want to download them, you can go to Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play and a host of other destinations where our podcast can be downloaded from. They're all listed on our website as well. Well, we've got plenty of other amazing podcast guests coming up in the not too distant future. I hope you'll tune in. If you like our content, why not share it with your friends, family, and even your work colleagues? The more people we can get listening to our podcast series, we want everybody out there to have a great time traveling the world. Okay, well, that's it for this particular episode. My name is Mark Philpott, and until we meet next time, I want to wish you all bon voyage.